Hey everyone, Aaron Spears here, young adult librarian at the Westlake Porter Public Library. This is the second installment in our summer teen writers workshop virtual edition. So what we're doing is every other Wednesday in June and July throughout the summer, we're doing this teen writers workshop where we're focusing on creating some amazing short stories. If you can't make it to the date and time of these events on Zoom, we thought, well, we'll just hit record and we'll make a video out of them as well. So people are busy in the summer, different schedules, different obligations. So these now are on demand on our YouTube channel for anyone to watch and enjoy. There are different writing prompts and different focus for each one of these videos. So if you can make it, please, by all means, join us. Go to westlakelibrary.org/events and register for the events when they are, like I said, every other Wednesday at 4 p.m. If not, this is your on-demand virtual writers workshop here. So let's jump in with today's topic. This is workshop number 2. The previous one we did was on generating your ideas. Where do the ideas for the stories come from? This one we're going to focus in on character creation, character development, and then also developing and broadening your knowledge of the characters that you're creating. So let's jump in with that one in particular. There are going to be built-in timers with these writing prompts so that you can just click play and just write and create according to the timers and the writing prompts that we have. Obviously, if you need more time, click pause. But these are built to just click play and experience it as a virtual program from start to finish. So let's jump in with creating characters. So this is the Summer Teen Writers Workshop Virtual Edition, session number 2, as I already mentioned, characters. The workshop structure, I've already mentioned a little bit of this too, but we do meet every other week on Zoom. It is on Wednesdays at 4 p.m. Each week we have a theme, story ideas, character building, etc., built-in timed writing prompts, and then also at the end of it, if you do join us live, we have some built-in time for you to write. Hopefully some of the prompts that have come up within the course of the workshop really do inspire you and you want to keep exploring that. The way that works in this virtual setting is when the video's done, just keep writing. And then we do like to include a curveball as our last writing prompt for the day to inject something random and unexpected into your story. As you're exploring your stories and even if you're maybe just revising a short story or something larger, having a random curveball like, oh, I wouldn't have ever thought of that may open up a character trait. It may open up a whole a section of your plot that you just wouldn't have thought of otherwise. So having the chaos of a curveball coming your way with your story can sometimes really open it up and generate some really interesting ideas. So in this particular one, we're looking at creating memorable characters, which I think it goes without saying, you can't have a great story if you don't have a great character. Great characters really enhance a great story. But then it doesn't go necessarily both ways. If you don't have a great story idea, you may find one by exploring a really great character or character type or personality type. So that's what we're going to be doing today. These are structured to kind of go from the beginning level of brainstorming a character all the way through taking your character for a test drive. So we've got truth, lies, and oddities. We've got a hiding exposition, goals and motivation, break the ice, the interview, reactions, the Gatsby method, and a test drive. Those are all the writing prompts we're going to be going through today. So let's jump right in. Truth, lies, and oddities. So we want to get to know our characters because we're starting at the very beginning here, or we're going to start creating a character. So one of the things that you're going to need to create the character is you're going to need to have a list. I like having lists around me when I'm writing to kind of keep me focused, but also to go to for inspiration. So we're going to make a list of physical and psychological traits that will help us develop well-rounded characters. Or if you are creating a character, have a list of physical and psychological traits that intrigue you in either people you know or fictional characters that you've experienced through reading or watching or listening. So if you're creating a character from scratch, go ahead and still make the exact same list, but this may help you explore like, oh, I really am drawn towards this type of a character. So the first thing we're going to do is we'll just do this for 1 minute, real quick one, 10 truths about your character. So these would be, if you already have a character in mind, start thinking about actual factual things about that character, or if you are creating a character from scratch and have no idea what to explore right now, this would be 10 truths about characters that you've really enjoyed, either real life characters, neighbors, friends, family members, whatever, or fictional characters that you've enjoyed. Now, the next one is lies. 10 lies about your character. So if you already have a character, get creative. What would they be likely or possibly to lie about? And these aren't written in stone. You may end up tossing out most of these, but it's a good way to kind of get to know psychologically where your character's coming from. All right, and this is my favorite one. 10 oddities about your character. Really weird things that, and this doesn't have to be like the weirdest thing ever, but it could be like, when my character goes grocery shopping, they only buy the ugly vegetables, the oddball ones, or my character actually loves doing laundry, or these are the quirks that really give your characters life. All right, prompt number 2 is hiding exposition, which is pretty self explanatory, I think, in that particular title. Readers need a physical description of your character. As you're reading a character, picture any book you've ever read. You need to know, like, what the character looks like, what they're wearing, height, weight, hair color, etc. This is not a compelling thing to read in list form, though, so we have to hide this exposition in the actual text of the short story. So I have an example here at the bottom from Ulysses by James Joyce. He looked into Stephen's face as he spoke. A light wind passed his brow, fanning softly his fair, uncombed hair. So all that James Joyce has done here is mention that two characters are talking to each other. Actually, one character is talking to another character. But we get, Stephen by name. We get a little bit of context setting too. A light wind passed his brow, so they must be outside. But it mentions his fair, uncombed hair. It's a way to kind of mix in some basic character physical descriptions within the actual story. So that's what we're going to be doing with this particular writing prompt. So what we're going to do first, though, is we need a list of those physical traits. Since we did the truth, lies, and oddities, we now need to do that list of physical traits that apply to your character. So whatever character you're developing, whatever character you have in mind right now, we're just going to list physical traits. So this is just a quick list. Set the timer for like a minute and just list out, the standard details. Like we said, height, weight, hair color, maybe type of clothing they really enjoy, favorite outfit, that sort of thing. But also don't forget to work in some of the odder details that go beyond those basic physical descriptions. Like I mentioned, clothes, scars, if there's injuries, birthmarks, tattoos. I don't know why I'm fixated on like skin things right now, but those are the kind of ideas you want to think about. All right, so the second part of that is now that we have the list of physical characteristics, we want to write a short scene where something happens, some kind of a simple action, whether it's like making a meal or walking from point A to point B or traveling. Like any whether you're writing science fiction or historical fiction, there's probably a point when your character is going from point A to point B. Or like the James Joyce example, just a basic conversation. But the way that you describe the character while in that situation is where we're going to be hiding the exposition. So let's do 2 minutes on this one. We'll just write a very short scene where you are weaving in those references to your character's physicality while a simple action is going on. Prompt number 3, we are on to goals and motivation. So the goal of your story is the reason your story exists, or it will exist shortly here. But what this really is asking is, what does your character want? I don't know why I keep going back, but like Lord of the Rings is such a perfect example of this, where like what do they want to do? Well, they're trying to destroy the ring. So that's the goal. Now the motivation though is what gives the character meaning. So why is Harry Potter trying to hunt down and kill Voldemort? That's the goal, is he's trying to get rid of Voldemort. He's trying to kill Voldemort. But the motivation behind that is more than just I want to kill you. There's a motivation there. There's a family history in that particular case. So that's the reason behind the goal. So what we want to try to do now in this prompt is figure out what your character wants, and then also why does your character want to achieve that goal. It sounds like pretty simple because it's only 2 questions, but those can be pretty big things. So you want to brainstorm this for a couple of minutes, and you want to reduce it down to basically one sentence. When you're done with this exercise after, let's say, like 2-3 minutes, you want to be able to have one sentence that you can use to describe to a potential reader that would hook them. Your character wants to achieve blank, the goal, in order to blank, the motivation. Harry Potter wants to achieve the eradication of Voldemort in order to obtain justice for his family, that sort of thing. So it boils it all down into one sentence. Prompt number 4 is break the ice. So as you've developed your characters, and we've got our list, we've got some hidden exposition, we've got truth, lies, and oddities, we've got the motivation, we've got the goal and the motivation figured out. So as you're developing your characters, you want to think also about how they present themselves out into the world. So we have a little bit of this background information, we've got the physical description and all that. What we want to do now is think about how your character would present themselves in various different scenarios. Now, depending on what genre you're writing, obviously if it's science fiction, that's going to be different than if it was historical fiction or contemporary, a romantic comedy or something. So different scenarios are going to reveal different aspects of their personality. So we're going to put up here a few different situations. Now, you don't have to write one out for all of these, but a few of these, hopefully, I got 6 up here on screen, will catch your attention. Be like, ooh, okay, let's explore that for a minute. So we'll give us a few minutes here to go through this list, but imagine how your character would present themselves in the following various situations. You've got a job interview, first date, catching up with an old friend, flirting with someone at a party. What would their Instagram bio be? Maybe they're crossing a border into another country. So think about in various situations how they would present themselves, because a character on a job interview is going to act different than a character who's on a first date. So the prompt number 5 is the interview. Now, this isn't the job interview we were talking about at the previous prompt. This is going to be a little bit different. You're going to ask your character a series of questions. So at this point, we're getting to know the characters a little bit stronger now. The personality is starting to develop. We're seeing how they present themselves in different situations. We know what their goals are. We know what their motivations are. We know what they look like, and we know some of their truth, lies, and oddities. So what we're going to do is we're generating hopefully some really good background information, and you may even end up getting potential scenes out of these. And what I pulled these from is a thing known as the Proust Questionnaire. Proust is a fairly famous French writer and kind of philosopher as well, and he developed 35 questions that he liked to ask that really kind of start to dig below the surface of a character, and you get to know the personality type of this character that you're dealing with. Now, I didn't do all 35. I just pulled out 6 here, but for the next couple of minutes, go through these and see which ones really grab you that you want to explore with the character you're working on. What is their greatest fear? Which living person would you you would most admire? What is your current state of mind? On what occasion would you lie? That could be very revealing about a character. Which words or phrases do you most overuse? When and where were you happiest? Now, the you in this is obviously the character, not you personally. So thinking about when and where your character was the most happiest, or when, if they have a catchphrase or a certain phrase or a word that they use all the time. These are different elements that you'd also be able to work into your story in the long run. All right. Prompt number 6. We're going to go with reactions here. This has come up in a writers group I'm part of where actors also use it as well, where like they say acting is reacting. It's reacting to certain situations because it's very revealing about characters, especially if you're acting, but also for the fictional world too. How your character reacts to different situations can reveal a lot about them. And like there's been times when I was working on a character and I got to this part and I was working out reactions and I realized I think this character may actually secretly be the antagonist. This might be the bad guy in this character in this particular story. And I hadn't really thought about that before, but the way that my character as I developed him was reacting to things was like, I don't think this is a good person. So you may end up revealing some very telling things about the character you have, and it may send you in a completely different direction. Maybe your short story now becomes the story of a villain rather than a hero. So you want to place your character in situations where they face a challenge. Even if it's not part of your story, this will maybe bring out or highlight aspects of your character's personality that you're like, oh, I didn't know that was there. I need to work this into this other scene better. But what I did for this one was grabbed a kind of a classic moral dilemma. It's called the Robin Hood problem. So I want you to try out both of these outcomes to this particular situation. So we'll give a few minutes to kind of explore both of these because it's kind of a yin yang answer to this particular moral quandary. So your character is an eyewitness to a crime. A man has robbed a bank, but he donates the money to an orphanage. So, they clearly need the money. If you go to the authorities, the money will be returned to the bank. So what does your character do? Does your character turn in the robber because stealing is wrong, end of story? So, give it a minute or two, explore that idea. Or do they keep the information to themselves because the money is going to a good cause? So there's some moral dilemmas there within each one of those answers. So a couple minutes to toy around with both of those situations. Problem number 7 is called the Gatsby Method. I had a creative writing teacher in college that kind of clued me in on this one. That I was like, this is a really interesting way to kind of take a look at your character that you're developing. Also, it gives you a chance to go back to that truth, lies, and oddities list, because in The Great Gatsby, if you haven't read that one, first of all, you should read it. It's a great story. It's also not that long at all. You probably are going to be required to read it in school at some point anyway, so may as well get ahead of this one. In The Great Gatsby, we hear about Gatsby before we meet him. So this is kind of interesting to me. So you hear about a character from friends, family, neighbors, whatever. This doesn't necessarily mean that it's fact. This could be fiction. It could be an exaggerated rumor. It could be entirely not true at all. But it's an interesting way to introduce your character, because they're going to seem kind of mythical and larger than life because other people are talking about them. So it builds up an expectation in the reader as well. So I think it's a great way to give context to your character. In fact, even if it's not great context or it's not accurate context, then you can subvert expectations later on when you do meet the character and your reader's like, wait a minute, they're not this, arrogant jerk that I thought they were. They're actually pretty down to earth, whatever. So it's a way that you can kind of play with audience expectations too. So in this prompt, again, I listed a few different options here, but go ahead and take your pick if you want to pick somebody else within the world of your short story. But pick someone in your main character's life and write about the main character from their point of view. So whether it's a best friend, a parent, a neighbor, a sibling, a boss. In a previous writer's workshop, we had somebody that they decided to give their main character a twin, and that became a whole separate thread within their narrative, that they had a twin, and like, oh, I never thought about that. This adds a whole new dimension to this particular story. So write about your main character and their life and what people think about them from someone else, from a different character's point of view. Problem number 8 now, we are onto the test drive. Now, at this point, we've got a pretty fully fledged idea of the character with, truth, lies, oddities. We've put them through the ringer with an interview. We've put them in social situations to see how they outwardly present themselves in different areas. We've seen how other people, other characters think about them or think of them as a person. Let's, we have the list too. We have like the basic physical characteristics hidden within some exposition. So let's take this character that we've been working on creating for a test drive. So we've got to know them pretty well. One of the ways I like to do these test drives with a character is to give them an ethical or moral dilemma, which you can, just do a Google search for ethical moral dilemmas, and it's pretty easy to find. I've pulled out 5 here that will give each one a couple of minutes to test out how your character would react to these specific ethical and moral dilemmas. So first one is write about the moment your character learns what it will cost to achieve their goals. So going back to goals and motivation, that goal you have for your character, The moment your character realizes, oh, it's going to cost this to achieve that goal, how do they react to that? And what do they say or do as they're reacting to that? All right, the second one. Does your character meet someone who helps them make a better decision about something? Write a scene or a bit of dialogue for a pivotal moment involving both characters. So this could be one of those like go back to the Lord of the Rings when if you have a friend along with you on the journey, if your character has a friend along with them on the journey, that is helpful to them. But maybe they don't start off with a friend the way they do in Lord of the Rings. Maybe you start off solo and then you meet someone who helps you along. All right, third one here. Does your character meet someone who manipulates them into doing something harmful? So it's kind of the opposite effect of the previous one. Now it's like maybe they meet someone who Or it's the same character. Maybe they start off like, oh, this person's really gonna help me out here on this particular quest, but then it turns out by the end, oh no, they were actually here for nefarious reasons. So what is the harmful thing, and how does that affect them and the other characters? Because this is going to be one of those ripple effects. If there's a realization that your character has been manipulated and has done something horrible, what are the ripple effects of that? How does that spread out through the other characters and your narrative? What could push your character over the edge? Everyone has a breaking point where they're just going to snap. What is it for your particular character? Knowing a little bit of their background, their history, whatever, what is it that could happen that would just push them over the edge? So, write out a scene, or even if it's not a full scene, maybe just a list or brainstorm some ideas of what it would be that would push them to the edge. What does your character do or say as a result of being pushed over the edge as well? And finally, Write about a traumatic experience in your character's life and how it continues to affect them. So, if your main character is 5 years old, what maybe happened to them a year or two ago or at birth that is still reverberating. If your character is, 20, 40, 80, however old, something from their past, something from their life that deeply affected them. Maybe it pushed them over the edge earlier on. And how does that affect them right now? Who did it involve, and how have those relationships changed for the better or for the worse since that event? All right, that is our last test drive question. So again, virtually, this would be just, hey, keep on writing. If you're with us live for one of our sessions, this is when there's a remaining time to write and keep exploring those ideas. And hopefully one of those writing prompts really got under your skin and you just have to keep exploring that. So the curveball, though, that we always wrap up on would be, let's introduce someone from your character's past that they don't remember. So, a lot of people, if you have let's say a 40-year-old character or a 30-year-old character, they may not remember that traumatic event from when they were like 6, or that was because of like an uncle or a neighbor or a total stranger that really left a mark on them, but they don't remember this at all. So introduce someone from your character's past that they don't remember, and then what does that fallout look like for your character, how they react to it, and how does your story narrative incorporate that, and what is the fallout within the narrative as well? Is this maybe a person who comes along and helps them out on their adventure, or is this one of those characters that popped up and actually ends up manipulating them and is really one of the antagonists in the story? All right. That's it for this particular virtual workshop. Like I said, please, if you can, join us live on Zoom. Go to westlakelibrary.org/events to look at the Wednesdays, every other Wednesday in June and July when we're having those. If not, just bookmark this page, and all these videos throughout the summer will be listed in the same playlist. So with that, I hope you're having a great summer, and keep writing.